My name is Olivia, and I learned early in life that family can be your biggest critics. For years I endured the sideways glances, the whispered comments, and the not-so-subtle jabs about my little online business. My sister Madison was always the star of the family, the golden child who could do no wrong. I still remember the day I told my family I was leaving my corporate job to start my own business. We were all gathered around the dinner table for Sunday dinner, a tradition my mother insisted on maintaining even though most of us had moved out years ago. "I'm starting my own company," I announced, trying to keep my voice steady despite my racing heart. "An e-commerce platform specializing in sustainable home goods." The silence that followed was deafening. My father's fork stopped midway to his mouth. My mother's smile froze, then slowly melted into a concerned frown. "But Madison," she burst out laughing. "An online shop? Seriously, Olivia?" she said, wiping tears of mirth from her eyes. "You're leaving your six-figure job at Goldman Sachs to sell eco-friendly soap on the internet?" "It's more than just soap," I started to explain, but Madison was already talking over me. "God, this is just like when you thought you could be a professional photographer in high school," she smirked. "Remember that disaster?" Of course I remembered. Madison had never let me forget how I'd spent my savings on a professional camera, only to have my small photography business fizzle out after a few months. But this was different. I had a plan, market research, and, most importantly, a vision. My father cleared his throat. "Olivia, honey, maybe you should think this through. Your job at Goldman is stable, prestigious. You're on track for senior management." "I have thought it through," I insisted. "The market for sustainable products is growing exponentially. I've already secured partnerships with several artisanal manufacturers." "Artisanal manufacturers?" Madison interrupted, her voice dripping with disdain. "You mean people making soap in their garages?" My mother reached across the table to pat my hand. "Sweetie, we just want what's best for you. Look at Madison, she's killing it at her tech company. Executive VP at 32. Now that's something to aspire to." I pulled my hand away, feeling that familiar ache in my chest. Madison had always been the family's measuring stick for success. Her prestigious MBA, her rapid corporate climb, her magazine-worthy wedding to a venture capitalist. Everything she did was perfect. "My decision is made," I said quietly but firmly. "I start next month." That was 3 years ago. 3 years of building my company, EcoHaven, from the ground up. 3 years of working 18-hour days, learning every aspect of e-commerce, and carefully cultivating relationships with sustainable manufacturers across the globe. 3 years of enduring my family's constant judgment and Madison's mockery. What they didn't know was that EcoHaven wasn't just an online shop. Behind the scenes, I had built a sophisticated platform that connected eco-conscious consumers with verified sustainable producers. We didn't just sell products. We created a marketplace that revolutionized how people bought and sold sustainable goods. But I kept that part quiet. Let them think I was just selling soap. Every family gathering became an exercise in restraint. Madison would inevitably steer the conversation toward her latest achievement, a major merger she was overseeing, a new office opening in Singapore, the tech magazine that featured her as one of 30 under 35 to watch. "How's your little shop doing, Olivia?" she asked, her voice sweet with fake concern. "Still managing to keep the lights on?" I'd smile and give vague answers about steady growth and expanding product lines. Meanwhile, I was closing deals with major retailers, developing proprietary software for supply chain verification, and quietly buying up smaller competitors. Last month's Sunday dinner was no different. Madison swept in late, as usual, dressed in a designer suit that probably cost more than what she thought I made in a month. "Sorry I'm late," she announced, air-kissing everyone's cheeks. "Board meeting ran long. We're finalizing the details of our expansion into the Asian market." My mother beamed. "That's wonderful, darling. Isn't that wonderful, Richard?" She prodded my father, who nodded appreciatively. "Very impressive," he agreed. "Your company's stock has been doing exceptionally well." Madison preened under the praise. Well, leadership is all about vision and taking calculated risks. Speaking of which, she turned to me with that familiar condescending smile. Poor Sarah, still running that pathetic online shop? You know, we're always hiring at TechFront. I could put in a good word for you, get you a real job. I took a sip of wine to hide my smile. If only she knew that her company's recent success was partly due to the e-commerce management software I gave license to, from one of my shell companies. Thanks, but I'm doing fine, I replied mildly. Madison laughed. Fine, honey, you're 35, single, and selling organic dish soap on the internet. That's not fine, that's... She gestured vaguely with her wineglass settling. Our mother jumped in, ever the peacekeeper. Madison, don't be harsh. I'm sure Olivia's business is sustainable, she said, the word like it was foreign, throwing me what she probably thought was a supportive smile. Actually, I started to say, but Madison was already launching into a story about her recent meeting with potential investors from Shanghai. I let her talk, let her bask in her perceived superiority, because I knew something she didn't, something none of them knew. While Madison had been climbing the corporate ladder at TechFront, I had built EcoHaven into a powerhouse. Our proprietary blockchain-based authentication system for verifying sustainable products had become the industry standard. Major retailers were fighting for partnerships. Venture capital firms were begging to invest. But the best part? I had just received some very interesting information about TechFront, Madison's precious company. Their expansion plans weren't going as smoothly as she claimed. In fact, they were in serious trouble. I excused myself early that night, citing an early morning meeting. As I drove home to my penthouse apartment, the one my family thought I couldn't afford, I couldn't help but smile. Madison's carefully constructed world was about to crumble. And she had no idea. Little did I know that in just 2 weeks, my sister would be standing in my office, her designer mascara running down her face, begging for my help. But that's when the real story begins. The call came at 3 a.m., 2 weeks after that family dinner. I was still working, reviewing contracts for our expansion into European markets, when Madison's name flashed across my phone screen. I almost didn't answer. She never called me unless it was to gloat about something. Olivia? Her voice sounded strange, shaky. I need to see you. It's important. I leaned back in my chair, studying the city lights through my office window. It's 3 a.m., Madison. Please, she whispered. Please, I need your help. That got my attention. Madison never said please, and she certainly never admitted to needing help, especially not from me. Come to my office, I said, then gave her an address she'd never heard before. But that's in the financial district, she said, confused. I thought your shop was just... Come, Madison. 45 minutes later, my private elevator opened. Madison stepped out, and I barely recognized her. Her designer suit was wrinkled, her perfect hair disheveled, and her eyes were red from crying. She stopped dead when she saw where she was. The top floor of the Miller building was a far cry from the small warehouse space she thought I worked from. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. The reception area alone was bigger than her entire office at TechFront. 10 million wouldn't even begin to fix this, Madison. Your company needs closer to 50 million to survive, and that's assuming you can rebuild your entire security infrastructure in less than a month. She stared at the screen, her face growing paler. How do you have these numbers? Even I haven't seen some of these reports. Because 3 months ago, when I saw what was coming, I started buying TechFront shares through various shell companies. I currently own 18% of your company. Madison's hands began to shake. Why? Why would you do that? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city I quietly conquered while they all underestimated me. Because sometimes the best lessons come from our biggest failures. You needed to fail, Madison. You needed to understand that success isn't about titles or magazine covers or impressing our parents. It's about building something real, something that lasts. Please, she whispered, please help me. I'll lose everything. I turned back to her. No, you'll lose your title, your corner office, and your inflated sense of superiority. But you won't lose everything. In fact, you might gain something more valuable. Humility. What are you going to do? I sat back down, folding my hands on my desk. Tomorrow morning, EcoHaven will announce its acquisition of TechFront. We'll absorb your company, fix the security issues, and restructure the entire operation. Your shareholders will get a fair price for their stocks, and your employees will keep their jobs. Hope flickered in her eyes. And me? You'll step down as executive VP. If you want, I'll give you an entry-level position in our product development team. You'll start at the bottom, just like I did. No special treatment, no shortcuts. Entry-level? She gasped. But I have an MBA from Harvard, and I built a billion-dollar company. While you were mocking me at family dinners, I replied calmly. Your choice, Madison. Take the job or walk away. She was quiet for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Finally, she nodded. I'll take the job. Good. One more thing. You'll tell our parents yourself. About TechFront's failure, about my success, all of it, no more pretending. The next Sunday dinner was very different. Madison sat quietly while I presented my parents with the truth about EcoHaven. My mother cried, apologizing over and over for doubting me. My father kept shaking his head, muttering about how he should have seen it. But the best moment came weeks later, when I visited our product development department. There was Madison, without her designer suits and perfect makeup, working alongside people she would have looked down on just months ago. She was learning, struggling, and for the first time in her life, earning her success instead of expecting it. "How's your little soap company doing?" she asked when she saw me. But this time, there was no mockery in her voice, only respect and maybe a touch of awe. I smiled. "We're doing just fine, Madison, just fine." As I walked away, I couldn't help but think about how sometimes the biggest victories come not from proving others wrong, but from showing them a better way to be right. Madison had lost her company, but she was gaining something far more valuable, the chance to build something real, something that would last. And me? I had finally stopped being the family disappointment and become something better, a sister who could teach rather than taunt, lead rather than follow, and succeed without needing anyone's approval but my own. The next time someone asks me about my little online shop, I just smile and remember, success doesn't always need to shout to be heard. Sometimes the quietest businesses make the loudest statements, and the best revenge isn't proving others wrong.